Okay, then now let's customize this home screen. So let me close this one and let me go open my Visual Studio Code and save these changes. Why it's showing save? Okay, save it and close it. Okay, and now what we need to do is let me go to the let me close everything. We don't need to worry about the login anymore. We don't need to worry about the client. Close this and close this, keep it clean. So open up your home.jsx. So now we are going to work in the home.jsx. So let me import few things what we are going to use it in the home component. So use state hook and use reference hook and use effect hook. These are the hooks we are going to use inside the use state. It's used to monitor the states, and reference, which helps you to fetch a particular component, particular ID from your component, and use effect, which helps you to re-render the entire things. Okay, and then we need to import few more things. Import link, not oops, not this bracket. Import link, comma route, comma routes from React router DOM. Save the changes. So make sure they are spelled correct. Link, route, and routes all are perfect. Then what we need to do is I'm going to import the icon. So import from React icons slash IO file ionicons. So from here, I'm going to use IO close circle. Then actually, this is not necessary over here. So let me delete it. I'll show you when we need the icon. We'll import it at the time. After that, we need import client. We need to import the client from double dot slash client. We need to have the client to access the user informations. Then what we need to uh, access certain information. So first what we can do is we need to create over here. I need to create a state to monitor the user. So use state snippet. Okay, and type user, press your tab key. For the time being, this user, that state initially it's going to be null. Save the changes. Okay, so this will keep on monitor and all those things. Okay, and then next what we are going to do is I'm going to write these styles for my home container. So for this, I'm going to add the class name. For the class name, it's going to be the flex, and then it's going to be flex column, and then it's going to use the full height and transition height. Okay, then what we are going to do is we need to add the duration for it. Duration 75 and ease out, or not ease linear, ease out, ease out. And let me delete this one. We don't need this home anymore inside it. Inside this, next what we need to do is we need to add that another one more division, and we are going to add few more things like a class name, and that's going to use the padding bottom as 8 pixels. Then flex 1, it should use complete space whatever it's available, and it should use the hatch screen, and overflow y scroll. Then hide the scroll bar, because this is the class which we created in our index.css. Copy that class and feed it over here. Hide the scroll bar. Okay, and I need to create a reference, so we need to access this scroll bar. So ref is equals scroll ref, scroll reference. So we having the use reference hook. Using that, I'm going to create a reference for it. So what I'm going to do is, so let me create scroll reference, scroll reference, scroll reference, scroll reference. So let me create scroll reference, 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 sc and here I'm going to create that variable const scroll reference is equal use ref open it null. Initially it's going to be null because we are going to have a multiple pin or anything. If someone it's clicked, or if you click any pin, you navigate to the different place, if it comes back, it should instantly scroll back to the top of the page. That's why we are having this, we are going to do that. So what I'm going to do is, after this I'm going to use the use effect to do that. Use effect, open it, open this will takes two different parameters. First one is a function, then second one is the dependencies. You can pass the number of dependencies to monitor by using the use effect. Currently it's going to be the empty use effect. So here we are going to set the scroll. So what we are doing here, we are setting the scroll to the top of the page, top of the page. So if there is multiple pins or post anything, if you scroll down, if there is any make changes is happening in the URL, it will immediately takes back to the top of the page. That's why we are going to do. So access that scroll reference dot current dot scroll to 0 comma 0. Save the changes. Scroll to, T is the capital, so make sure that's in the capital letter. Save the changes so you don't see anything so far in your screen because nothing is there. Then what I'm going to do is, still we're not yet done with the home. Next what I need to do is, if everything is happening perfectly, I need to reroute it to different things. So I'm going to use the routes. Inside the routes I'm going to pass it to a different route. What is the route it's going to be? And here I'm going to send a path, give a path, whatever slash star, whatever the path it's coming after this slash, pass that element. Okay, pass mount this particular element. We need to bring that particular element. What is that? We are going to bring the pin container which we not yet created. We need to create it, and inside this pin we need to pass that user as a prop, user which we created. Over here this state, we are passing this state, but still we didn't set any users which we already stored in the sanity and as well as in the local storage. We need to access it and we need to pass it to the pin, and this is going to be a very big component, and that was why you need to create it inside the container folder. Right click, new file, and create pin.jsx. Save it and RAFCE, and for the time being we are going to save it as pin. Save everything. If everything is up and running fine, you should see that pin. So absolutely we not yet defined this pin over here, so it's showing error. So press Control space or Command space, you can see that showing that suggestion, and add, it will import that pin over there, and now it should problem solved. Look at that, it's navigated to that particular pin perfectly. Okay, so if any URL is coming, like after this, if I'm using search or something, that will takes me to this particular pin. Inside this I will access this URL inside that pin container. Okay, so far it's working fine. Now what I need to do, I'll open the pin container and we need to do all these settings for our pin container now. Okay, so but still this pin container, it's taking the user information. We not yet done that user information so far. So what we need to do is we need to fetch the user information. So what I'm going to do is, right after this scroll reference, I'm going to get the logged in user information. So here we are getting the logged in user info, okay, from the local storage. Okay, const user info is equals, so local storage dot get item of user. So you remember that we set the item by using the user in the browser, so I'm going to access it by using that same name. Okay, so if it contains this user, then, or if it's equals to undefined, we need to access it. If the local storage is, that means if it is nothing there, it will throws an undefined error, so we need to handle it. If it is not equals to undefined, only if it is not equals to undefined, then we are parsing it by using JSON dot parse, okay, local storage dot get item that user. We are parsing that user data into JSON. Then after this, if it is nothing there, I'm just going to clear the local storage dot clear. I'm going to clear the local storage. Okay, so this will work fine. So we are checking if it is undefined. If it is not undefined, get that data and parse it to a JSON by using JSON. Otherwise, clear that local storage. This is what we are going to do. Okay, so we need to set this to the we need to verify it whether this user is already in our sanity or not. So we need to verify it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more use effect to monitor this use effect, create a function, and then create a dependency. Okay, so here inside here we are going to we need to access it. We need to access the sanity over here. To access that sanity, what we created the client. So we already imported that client over here. So okay, so what we need to do is we need to create a query to fetch the details from the um, sanity client, because we need to write a query to fetch the user details. So what I'm going to do is inside the source folder, I'm going to create a new folder called utils. So inside the utils folder, we are going to keep all the functions which going to support our component, all the utility functions. So let's create a new file. Inside this, I'm going to create that file as data.js. Okay, inside that utility for data.js, I'm going to later I'm going to add few things inside this. But for the time being, we are going to create a query to fetch the user. So user query, and then we need to export const. We need to export this. So export const user query equals. I'm going to pass an user ID into it when I'm calling it, and then because we're having the user ID in the local storage, we are going to pass it into it. Okay, so const, I'm going to write a query is equals, and template string, use the backtick, that's a template string. So star, so star means we are going to access every single document type. Okay, star square bracket underscore type is equals on what particular document type you're going to access. I'm going to access the user. Okay, user type, and underscore id, that id it should be equals to, it should be a string. ID should be enclosed into a string. Even though we are passing as a JSON string, we need to enclose it into a string. Dollar, open it and close it. User ID, that's the parameter which we passed it. Save the changes. This is the query you need to write. Then return this query. Return this query. So actually what we are doing is we are checking the user table and we are trying to fetch the detail which matching this user ID which we collected from the local storage. This is what we are doing over here. If you go through your sanity docs, oops, I closed the sanity docs, I think so. So let me go here and let me type sanity docs. If you open the sanity docs, you can find the querying functionalities, how you need to query language. It's using the grq, that means it's this one, grq, how the query everything is working. What is this graph relational object queries? It's using graph relational objects queries, so you can find how all these things are working over here in their documentation. So type is just the field which is referring to the document, and you can see here how they are accessing and all those things. It's just a simple grammatical grammar. So if it's just to create a simple query to access your sanity. So go through this document for basic understanding and all those things. Here you can see joins and all those things over here. Later we will going to write a complex query to fetch all the informations. So before that, go through all these things in this documentation itself. Okay, so now let's go back to our folder over here. So this, it's ready. We created it and we exported it. Let's go back to the home over here. And what we need to do is, where's the home? Wait a second. So now what we need to do is I need to I need to create a query and I need to pass it to the client. So const query is equals, okay, so I'm having this user query from the utility function. So user query, so that will be inserted over here. See, it's imported user query from the utils. I'm going to pass this user info. From the inside the user info, we having the Google ID, Google underscore Google ID. Okay, so GOOLE I capital D. Use this conditional rendering. If there is data, then pass it. Otherwise, no. So that's why we are using this conditional rendering. Otherwise, it will throw an undefined error. We need to handle that one. That's why we are passing this and question mark over there. So we are passing it to the user query. That will returns the query over here. Okay, that will returns that it's, so this will returns a promise back. So if I console log it, console.log, if I log this query in the home screen, if I go back to the project and right click inspect element, go to the console. So here, look at that, we are fetching this ID and we are getting this particular query back. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to access the client. Okay, we need to fetch the details. So client, we are getting that query now, so we need to pass that query to the client. So client dot fetch, pass that query, and that will return a promise. Then we are getting it as a data. Okay, and then here if I console.log that data, let's see what's happening. If I go back and right click inspect elements, go to console, we are getting an array object, and in look at that, we are getting that data who logged in are currently in this particular machine. It's returning that ID, type, updated at, created at, username, image. So we never created all these things. Sanity itself created all these variables so that you can use it for your purpose inside your front end for the later purpose. Okay, so now we are getting the data and I need to set this data to the user. So set user as the data. Inside the data, what we're having this array, zeroth array. So I'm just passing that zeroth array to our user variable. Then this user information will be passed to the pin over here so that we can access the user data in the pin.jsx. Is it clear? I hope now it's clear how this everything is working. So now our user detail will be passed to the pin, and let's go back over the pin.jsx and we need to do all the necessary things in the pin.